Awesome. I'm very, very excited. Monica, hi again. We're going to say hi again to
Hello.
everyone.
Hi,
And
everyone.
so this is a new thing for us. I don't know. Have you ever live coached random people? I never have.
Um, I don't know. I feel like we're always life coaching people, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is different.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm expecting people to live coach and then like be on camera with us. Like that
Gotcha.
I've never not done that. But so we are going to do something that I've been, and I know Monica's been really excited about, and show you how the author ecosystem is actually tangibly usable in your writer life today. How it's not just a cool concept. And for the last 5 months, we've been kind of doling out a little bit of information at a time. We gave these overviews, and I'm really excited because I think in the past couple of weeks, I've really started to figure out how to get people really massive results. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in talking to people, I think the biggest thing is like talking about how to actually identify, because I think as we describe it, people latch on to like, oh, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. So like one example is like the forest, which our word for the forest is interconnected. I use that word elsewhere when I was talking about the grassland, but and then it was like a lot of forests were like, hey, I'm interconnected. So one of the things that we haven't really explained is like the interconnection, like everybody's interconnected, but they may be interconnected in different ways. And so these are things that we need to clarify. Like we've clarified it between ourselves, but we need to like show our work now in many ways. But these are things that we can kind of tease out a lot better in talking to people rather than just talking to each other about it. Um, so yeah, it's really exciting, and we want to do more of this. Obviously, we are going to do more of this, as people know. We have a mini course coming up, so if you like this, then you'll love that. And we'll talk more about that as the broadcast goes on. But um, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we should start by just I want to start by talking about something that Becca told us when she came into our membership a couple of months ago. And that was about, she said that every personality, because people ask us, like the number one question that I get is like, is this like Becca's stuff? Is this like Clifton Strengths? Is this like Enneagrams? And while like technically it's an archetyping system, what she said was really revealing to me, which was every archetyping system, personality type thing is built upon a single axis. And it has to be for everything to work. In fact, Becca has like a billion axes that they work on in their business. So I don't know the exact number, but she talked about no less than 3 to 5 on the call. And so what this author ecosystem is, what the axis, the fulcrum, it all turns around is sales and marketing success. So what we did was basically we went back. So the numbers that I'm going to tell you are actually very good for courses. Like
Mhm.
when you say like 50% of people went through and succeeded on a course, like that's a huge number. It's just not good enough for us. So we would see like 20% of people who launched their Kickstarters, for instance, way overperforming. And then another 20% way underperforming, and like
But
50%.
they still like hit. It was still a successful campaign. They just underperformed. Yeah.
Yes. So, and then like 2/3 not performing that, like performing what we would kind of expect. And then like 50% of people probably not even starting the course or not launching or doing anything.
Right.
And we wanted to know why. We have now done this for we've now coached thousands of people and had thousands of people go through and we saw the same thing. Like, why are some people way overperforming and some under, like, what is it? And what we found was that depending on the platform, there are certain tendencies that they already have are accentuated or detracted. And we found kind of 5 tendencies that our students had. And so we kind of correlated that to the ecosystems. And so the most important thing I think you can use to think about the ecosystems is this is about sales and marketing success. It does not matter if you love to go deep. What matters if that deepness leads to sales and marketing success using those tactics. So
Yes.
forests love to go deep. Grasslands love to go deep, but they have different success metrics in that way. Would you say that's accurate, Monica?
Yeah, like I talked to somebody who is most likely a forest. And I don't want to like definitively type anyone without their like consent and agreement, basically, because it's not really fair to them. Like, it's supposed to be a learning tool for them, not for us to like label people. But yeah, she's probably a forest, and writes historical fiction. And so it makes sense that if you're a historical fiction writer, you're going to resonate with the idea of going deep, right? Because it's like you would have to go deep into history in order to write those books. But it's really about, are you going deep on the sales and marketing? Because like I'm a grassland, and I go deep on the sales and marketing part of things. And use that to create sales and marketing. And so a forest doesn't do that. And so those are like little nuances, because I think that happened with going deep. It happened with interconnectedness. It's happened with super fans. Like we've talked about, when we try to talk about fans, people really have a lot of definitions of fans. And so it's like there is one type that tends to have a lot of super fans in particular, but like it's a type that like we all have different definitions of super fans. So some people are identifying with that type when like we can look at their fans and it's not super fans. It's like majority just like readers, casual readers, like KU readers even. And so there's a lot of those distinctions that we just haven't been able to get into language just yet, that we're kind of like we know what we're talking about, but we're kind of discovering that it is very confusing to people in terms of identifying themselves. So that's like one thing that we want to do, is just get better language around how we can help people identify themselves to begin with, and then like how we can help them further understand, like, here's what you do now. Like, here's what you need to lean into, here's what you need to pull back from, and like how can like we almost need to talk to people to understand like where's the disconnection, because like we see this very clearly. We see the patterns like so clearly just between the two of us, and we're pretty much on the same page about it, and so we're trying to figure that part out.
Yes. So I think I want to give 1 or 2 quirky things that could help maybe define each ecosystem. So for instance, if you're a desert, you have to love optimization. Like, you have to be able to look at what is hot, make an outline of like how this book succeeds, write that book without putting yourself into it, and then like have it succeed and actually hit. If you don't do those things, like to have success, you're not a desert. Right. And one of the biggest things is forests who try to do that, but they can't write the book to trope enough, to spec enough to make it succeed. Additionally, one of the really interesting things about deserts is we all talk about casual readers to super fans when we talk about fandoms, and deserts, they're not thinking about fandom in the same way. They're thinking of the entire community of people who like, let's say, mystery novels. And they say, I am servicing fans by servicing the most of those who everyone else would consider casual readers. And so if you don't understand that that's how a desert thinks about fandom, you kind of you're going to be talking past each other.
Right.
Like with grasslands, if you are not putting pennies in the bank every day, if you don't wake up still able to talk about wide or direct sales, like, or whatever your one topic is, if you're constantly swirling between topics, probably aren't a grassland. But I think I should have Monica talk a little bit more about that, because she is a grassland, if you want.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And I think that's one of the challenges we've had is like, I'm a grassland, Russell's and tundra. We both understand those types like much better in terms of how those types actually think versus the other three where it's like we only fully understand like what we see. We don't understand like their own language. Where like for the grassland, I mean, to me, the grassland, yes, they are like the way I see them is they're looking at like absolutely everything at all times. They're trying to kind of, they're just like kind of lurking in the marketplace and trying to understand. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to align their interests to something that can be mega popular. um,
It's come
and
in the future,
in the
right? Like,
future, yeah, it's a little bit more futuristic as well because a grassland is like I just want to kind of find like my forever thing too. And like other types are probably like, what do you mean your forever thing? Like that's not a possible thing.
yeah,
But the grassland, what they do best is they find these trends or they see these trends in the marketplace and they weave them into their one thing. So they're kind of like just weaving basically one basket for like their whole career, their whole life. And they're just weaving in like oh, like a great example is like romance is one of the best examples that I can think of. And there are some grasslands in romance, but I'll just give you one, which is Nora Roberts. She's a romance grassland. And so Nora Roberts writes whatever kind of I don't even know what kind of romance she writes. Basically just like contemporary romance, but she probably has some paranormal romance in there too. But like every time, like every new series, she's just weaving in like whatever the popular romance tropes are, like just over and over and over again. She's not trying to start a new pen name. She's not like, it's like, oh, like darker romance is popular now, or like paranormal romance is popular now, or whatever it is. She's just weaving it into her main thing and like trying to essentially essentially get in front of that audience and like bring a couple of those people in, and thematically everything's the same, and so it all kind of flows back into this one thing. And I think fantasy authors, there's so many fantasy authors like Terry Pratchett. I posted a thing about the reading order for Terry Pratchett's series. He only had one basically, or one main one, and he just it's like if you want to follow like the Goblin Wars, like you follow these 4 books from these different series. And if you want to, like, he has a series about witches, one about elves, and one about the like every main like paranormal creature basically popular. And so that's kind of how the grassland operates and how they find success. It takes them a while to find that thing and then to build it large enough for it to be successful. But once they build it large, they know how to navigate it forever, basically.
yeah,
They know how to stick with it.
yeah. So, and to like the fact that the evergreen marketing model works so well for grasslands is because they have all of these hooks. Everything they post is meant to be usable forever. And a
Right.
tundra is basically the exact opposite. So
Yes.
a tundra is basically a walking sales funnel. Like their success is based on putting all of these evergreen tropes together and then saying, I'm going to launch this in 3 months, and building up to that launch and then coming down from a launch, just like a fashion designer. So a lot of people who aren't a tundra, for instance, a grassland that has maybe one evergreen trend in there, or like one trend that they're working on, or a forest who's just doing their own thing, like they have a lot of trouble peaking at the right time by themselves because they're not using enough trope. They're not trope stacking enough to move to have everyone get interested. The excitement that a tundra can bring is that it peaks at the right time. And to someone's point, I love you, but you're wrong. Each one of these is actually, if you think about the water appropriating for each ecosystem, it actually makes complete sense for each one. So a desert.
Oh, but we haven't explained it, is what he's
So,
saying. He's not
so
saying it's not.
so a desert the person who is good at a desert is very quick and adaptable. They find shade under what is popular right now, and then when the shade leaves or it stops raining or whatever, they're very good at moving to the next location. They're very speedy. Grasslands are mostly all grass with a couple of trees around them. And so the tree is their topic. The tree is, and every post that they make, because they're great at content marketing, protects the
tree.
Like the tree. Like for a tundra, they are seasonal launchers. They launch and then they hibernate. And a tundra is only fertile very short times per year. A forest is very, very welcoming to people inside of it, and then not very welcoming to anything else. So for a forest, like the thing that a forest has that's unique to them is they have the ability to talk around a subject, like, and still enjoy it. Right. A forest, for instance, if you ever go into like a Facebook group and they're talking about like what their favorite cheese is or I cannot deal with that.
They're posting funny stuff. Like,
yeah, they're posting things that have nothing to do with their books or their work or anything like that. Yeah.
And everybody loves it. Like if I posted about like macaroni cheese, what is it? Like, I don't even know what it's called, but if I posted about macaroni to my audience, they'd be like, "What? Like, are you okay? Like, have you been kidnapped?" Like, they just do not expect that from me. But a forest is like, they can post about macaroni, and their audience is just like, "Awesome! Like, cool. Let's talk about macaroni. Like, we're all good." And it's very interesting. So you have a lot of forests who have Facebook groups, and they're like, "Oh, I just talk about whatever I want in there," and like my readers love it, and that works great for a forest, and it works like terribly for everybody else. Like everybody else, it's like, no,
well, they can't
like,
even do it because
yeah.
Like they can't do it because the way that the other ecosystems connect with their readers is through the work, not around the work. Not that forests don't also connect through the work, but they have the unique ability to talk about things that aren't even in the same genre or the same world or anything. They can just talk about literally anything. And like they enjoy it and their fans enjoy it. And most other ecosystems, unless you evolve past that, don't have that ability.
Yeah.
And then
they do put the macaroni and cheese in their books, probably like some great Aunt Mildred character in their books is now making like this great macaroni and cheese recipe, and then it becomes a thing in their fandom, and then they're sharing the recipe, and then it's like based on this real person, and like and like I get why it works for them. It doesn't work for any of the rest of us, basically.
But it also goes to the interconnectedness, because they will probably have like some like maybe the main character loves macaroni and cheese, different kinds of, in every book they have different ones, so it becomes like a running joke in the fandom.
But then so inside baseball.
But then they're talking about mac and cheese in the Facebook group, and it has nothing to do with their books, and like that's when. So
like I would say it's not welcoming, it's accessibility, right? Like they're very accessible to the people who are on the jokes. They are less accessible to people who are outside of their sphere, so it's hard for them to build more people, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes. And then finally, aquatics. So everybody wants to grow outside of their own format, probably at some point. However, an aquatics growth comes from their expansion into other formats. Like George Lucas, he had a movie, and then he had video. Like instead of just making a new movie immediately, he's like, what if I do merch? And what if I do action figures? And what if I do TV show? And what if I do board game? What if I do a holiday special? And what if I do all of these things? Like the literal fulcrum of his entire expansion comes from going out of the same format to other formats. And yes. you don't, probably of all of the ecosystems, the aquatic is the least represented in publishing, but it is the most represented in like movies or TV or like something where that is literally the growth mechanic. So those are 5 different sort of ways that each ecosystem grows. And it's really important that when you're thinking about your author ecosystem, you're not necessarily focusing on what you enjoy doing, because I think everyone enjoys doing on some level some part of most of this stuff, but it's what is leading to your sales and marketing success. And most importantly, what sales and marketing actions are you already doing that you don't feel like are sales and marketing actions? Because the most important thing that we found was every ecosystem is doing sales and marketing actions that lead to their success. However, they don't think that they're doing the sales, like they don't consider the things that they're doing to be sales and marketing. They only consider what the other 4 people are doing. Like No Desert thinks that like ads and optimizations is marketing work. They just do it. Like none of my friends who are at Grasslands think content marketing is their marketing action. They're just like, I love writing about this one topic forever. It's funny because Monica and me were talking earlier this year, and I was like, she's like, I just want to write like posts. And I was like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to do the launches. And she's like, oh, as I was like, that's easy for me. And so like, there is an ease in my ability to do a live launch. There's an ease in Monica's ability to write about the same topic for 500 posts. Like we don't consider those things to be like draining to us. They may not always be fulfilling to us or filling us, but they aren't draining us. And when you think of the ecosystems, those are some of the things that you should think about. And I will just finally say, the quiz is 25 questions. We think that it gets it right about 75 to 80% of the time, which is amazing for something we've only come out with like 5 months ago. And the quiz came out 4 months ago before we knew any of this stuff. But
we have not revisited it.
Yes.
I have not looked at that quiz.
Yes. There's a pretty good chance that your actual ecosystem, there's at least a 20% chance that the ecosystem that you tested as is not the one that you actually are, because we are learning things all the time about them.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to figure it out. For some reason, I wanted to say something about aquatics. There were a couple comments about like it's really helpful for aquatics if they have a lot of money because of all the different formats. It's true. Like if you are an aquatic, you want to be in a lot of formats, you really need an audience that could support those formats. And a lot of aquatics in publishing specifically don't really have that. But what we see is that like an aquatic is not going to write their next book. They're going to like do like a special edition hardcover of their book, or they're going to like create a new like piece of merchandise. Like we see it all the time through Kickstarter. It's like, oh, they're just gonna like create a new pin or something.
Or they're gonna like create like a short film, or like they're gonna make some beauty line, or they're gonna like expand out in some other way like that. But like
like they're very much and it's all in service. I mean, the other thing is they are the type that seems to have these like really hardcore fans, like the super fans. Not that like everybody, all the types have super fans, all the types are able to have super fans, but for whatever reason, the aquatics are, it's almost like they have mostly super fans. And so it's like a much smaller audience, I think, than some of the other types, especially when they're not aware of like what they're doing. Much smaller audience, but a lot more super fans within that audience. And so somebody else could have a much bigger audience, and like the percentage of super fans is smaller, but it's larger than this aquatics. But we saw that a lot with Kickstarter, where we're like, they had a pretty small list or a pretty small audience, but they were like, all of those people showed up for them. And then we saw people with huge lists where like like most of those people didn't show up for them on the Kickstarter. And so that was we kind of realized like, oh, these are two opposite ends of the spectrum, which are the deserts and the aquatics.
Yes. And there's a question about clarifying the distinction between grasslands and forests. A
Yeah.
forest won't be super welcoming to strangers, but strangers can wander in and out of grasslands perfectly happily, kind of right.
Yeah.
I have, okay, so the best way that I can to think about forests is when there are a ton of in jokes in a universe and it takes it, they have loyal fans, and so that creates natural in jokes or things that feel unwelcoming to someone that's coming into it for the first time, or they're coming in like casually.
Like I would like say not unwelcoming, it's inaccessible. That's like, because I think welcoming it makes it sound like the forest is not welcoming, and that's not really the case. Forests are usually like pretty warm, or to me they seem like really warm, happy people a lot of the times. But I think that it's like, okay, like Taylor Swift we've decided is a great example of a forest, as is Adele. Like they're both really good examples of forests. And it's like, you have to know Taylor Swift's whole lexicon to talk to another Taylor Swift fan. Like you can't just be like a casual fan of Taylor Swift and then talk to me and Russell about Taylor Swift and have a good experience, because we are like more serious Taylor Swift fans. But like everybody is like, all of her fans are, they like know all her albums, all her lyrics. Even like before the concert they had like there's like friendship bracelets. Like you can be a huge Taylor Swift fan and not even know that that there's like all these friendship bracelet trading at these concerts. And so like that's what we mean by kind of like in joke, like in and out. It's not that she's not welcoming. She's accumulating fans or accumulating new listeners every day, and finding new people every day. But when you become a Swiftie, it's very like intense, and there's all this inside stuff, like you know who Jake Gyllenhaal is and like his whole like relationship, you know who like even like the boyfriend's lexicon, like you just know a lot of that stuff. And so hopefully that kind of explains. And I think in the publishing community, I think a lot of forests don't realize like kind of like the Easter egg model is kind of their gift, because it's hard for the forest to like get off the ground. But once they do get off the ground and they do like get people to show up, then it's like, oh, like this Easter egg strategy that Taylor Swift uses is exactly kind of what you need to do. You need to leave little clues in your books for your fans. And that's what we were talking about with the macaroni.
Yes. So yeah, and as opposed to like Monica and I don't have inside jokes with our like I don't have any inside jokes with my like fans, or like you can come in and like pretty
like
and like you can come into a grassland at a lot of points and feel like, oh, you get it, like you can get it. It's like a much lower barrier to entry,
right?
But also like probably a lot easier to bounce out of that fandom than like once you're a Taylor Swift fan. So I think something like when you look at, not to continually go back to Taylor Swift like we always do, but like with Taylor Swift, she had a pretty normal first couple of albums. Like they were very, they're not bland, but like they were very much like in that genre. Like she's like, she very well hit all the tropes of that genre. And over time, she's gotten weirder and weirder and weirder with her stuff and more and more. And like, so people so again, like it's not unwelcoming. It is just, it often feels daunting for new people to come in to find a forest, especially once they're established, because they have this whole lexicon of their own work.
Yeah. And daunting, it's like one or the other, right? Like either it's too daunting or it's like, wow, this is really cool. Like, oh, I did, it's like, oh, I want to go deeper into this. But like when you think of a Taylor Swift fan, like really that fan is going deeper with Taylor Swift. It's not like, oh, I just want to go really deep into like her Reputation album.
Right.
Like her Reputation album is like, it's the spoke, but she's the wheel.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have some people. I was scared no one would say me. So this is your chance. If you're in the thing and you have not said me yet, you can say me in the chat, and then we're going to pick a couple of you to come on and live coach. The one other thing that I will say about this, which makes it unique to all of the other archetyping systems, is eventually a healthy ecosystem has elements of all 5 of these parts in them. So one of the great things that I think of Neil Gaiman. Like, Neil Gaiman is also clearly a forest, but he's like worked in all sorts of formats with his work. He's brought in new fans. He's like optimized some of his things. He was a journalist for a long time. Like, he's worked in one genre for like 40 years. Like, he talks about one thing and he does it all of the time, especially with his nonfiction or fiction. Like, his thing is mythology. Like, that's the thing if you're like a Neil Gaiman fan. But like, his base level is a forest. And I think that when you think of this, it's good if any of you know Enneagrams. I think of like the easiest way to tell your Enneagram is what you do under stress. And is with an ecosystem, when all the chips are down, you're probably going to fall on one of these things. Like with Monica and Grasslands, they're like, I'm going to write my way out. I'll write my way out. Like, they're the Hamilton. And she does it all the time. Like,
I do.
Every time we talk about something, not like something going pear-shaped or something, 5 hours later, there's a post about it, or like 2 days, like there's an article.
Like 20 minutes later, there's a post about it.
With me, when things go bad, I'm like, what can I sell?
Launch.
Like, what do I have? Like, what do I have to launch? Like, what can I launch to like make up that money?
Launches, yeah.
And with a forest, they're like, what does my audience like? How can my audience support me? Maybe they're doing more coaching, or maybe they're like doing, I don't know, maybe they're doing a fan service event or something, but they're like falling back on their audience.
Yes.
I don't. An aquatic would,
yeah.
Like, an aquatic would be
go ahead.
Brand managing. Like, a Des would be like, how do I optimize the next book? Like, what's hot right now that I can launch in 2 weeks or like next week and like hit the top of the charts again?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect summary, and I agree with you. I think like one of the challenges is like we haven't really introduced our like some of our explanation, because we have 5 levels of like how healthy you are, and it goes from inert to expanded. And so there's evolved, and so like as you go up in those levels, kind of like the health levels of an Enneagram, but as you go up in those levels, it's really an indication of you going up in your marketing and sales abilities for your type. And one of the things that we also like, I think is a struggle for people to kind of identify themselves is like, what does a inert grassland look like? Because like a lot of what we've talked about is what a successful one looks like, and the successful ones, they're pulling little bits from each of the other archetypes in order to be successful. And so we can talk about that kind of through. I think we should probably get into the coaching.
Yes. So
go ahead.
So I ran a random number generator, and it came up 1 out of the 8 people who said me. And that 1 is Tom, was the first person. So I don't know if we can just pull people in at this point. Like,
let's do it.
Tom, we're going to pull you in. Hope you're wearing pants, or at least a shirt.
All right, let me find you in the list. Oh, it is alphabetical order, so that works. All right, so is it Tom Levine?
Yep.
Okay.
Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, buddy. Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
What are we doing?
Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself? I know a lot about your career, but maybe Monica doesn't as much, and the people outside generally don't.
Sure, thank you. Happy to. So my name's Tom Levine. I'm an award-winning author with 9 traditional novels out, originally with imprints of Random House and Simon & Schuster. I've also written for Spawn with Todd McFarlane several years ago, and written some fiction for the BattleTech tabletop role-playing game. And then I've released, I don't know, 6 or 7 novellas and novels independently. And I'm pretty sure I'm a forest.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, so what makes you think you're a forest?
Some of the things you've mentioned here, I mean, the quiz, of course, clarified a lot, but like, for example, you just said, when all the chips are down, what do you do? Forests fall back on their audience. That's absolutely what I do. I think the talking about whatever they want and then their readers really enjoy it, I do that. In fact, I have better luck writing about random things or posting about random things than I do talking about my work, it feels like.
That's
So those are a couple
crazy.
reasons.
That's like amazing and also nuts to me. Like if I post about anything that's not my work, it is like crickets. Unless it's Taylor Swift, but that's because I've trained people to listen to me about Taylor Swift. But
I've run
Yes.
into
just
this with
funny.
I've run into this with Kickstarters, for example, and I can write. Lately, I've been posting images and one or two sentence microfiction kind of things, and those get some engagement. And then after a week of that, I come in and say, "All right, my Kickstarter's coming, guys." Nothing, total silence. So it's been a thing.
Wow.
Okay. So I think you're probably our Forrest. And I think that probably also because you wrote for Spawn and you also wrote Party and like these like kind of like contemporary like fiction books as well, and have had success doing a bunch of different kinds of things. The only other one that I could possibly think that you would be a desert, because you're really good at like ghostwriting, but like I know you don't like optimizations and such, so you can't be that.
Agreed.
Like,
Agreed.
so my question is, where are you gathering people? Where are you gathering your Tom heads?
Where are they actually congregating, or
Yes.
Both.
So
Both and
yes,
all. Use
where
your
are they
community.
congregating? But where are you what singular place are you developing that is like Tomland?
man, that's a great question. I have fingers and toes in all the major social platforms with middling success. I'm having zero success on Instagram, a little bit more success on Twitter, a little bit on Facebook, little bit, probably not too much on TikTok. My strength, I think, where I tend to gather people is in person. If I'm at a con, particularly if I get to teach or talk about the things that I know about and get excited about, I can get a crowd that way easily. Those are few and far between. I don't know if that helps or answers the question.
Does
Yeah.
Monica, do you have anything you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it kind of confirms like something about Forest that's pretty common is that they do pretty well in person because they're able to connect on that personal level with each person. And like a Forest, I mean, their strength is their personality. Like that's what they tend to connect over with their readers. And then people are like, gosh, I really like this person. Like I'm going to try their books, and then they read their books and the Forest puts a lot of themselves into the book. And so they're like, wow, I really like this person's books too. It's like kind of like hanging out with them, basically. It's hanging out with this person, but just through this different vehicle. You mentioned social media. Social media, I think Forrest loves social media and social media. It's very driven by algorithms, and the people who are like really good at social media tend to be deserts. And the reason is because they like to optimize that social media. Also, tundras do pretty well at social media. Social media or tundras do well when they focus on one platform. Deserts can kind of do well. Like they tend to do well at all of it, and like it's very similar to like advertising for them.
Well, and
Um,
also with social media, they know the algorithm and they know when
they
the
know the
algorithm
algorithm.
changes.
Mm-hmm.
They know when the
Yes,
algorithm like stops working for them, and they know how to manipulate it to work for them again. And what happens with Forrest a lot is they'll hit like, wow, I just like it's working for me. And then like the algorithm moves on and like they don't move
they
on.
don't.
And
Yes,
so they just like drop like a rock eventually because they're not deserts like the gamesmanship. If you remember
mm-hmm.
one thing about deserts, they love to play the game of how to make the most people look at their work. Like it is very much like my friend's father was a desert. He wrote 200 plus novels, a lot of them mystery, but he wrote a lot of he wrote a lot for other people. And his thing was like, I can write whatever, but I'm going to take pride in making it clever. And like, he didn't care about putting himself in there. He cared about making the thing clever. So I think you are probably, I mean, I don't use our more expanded vocabulary of like evolution, but it sounds like you are somewhere between healthy and unhealthy. You're moving that way. And I think that the reason why that is because you don't give enough of yourself. I'm on your email list, so I know exactly how often you email people, and I know what you say, put in those emails, and like, it ain't the Tom show. And also you don't have anywhere to gather and talk about your work. And so a social media strategy that would work for you probably would be like, let's say I'm not saying you should have a circle community or a mighty network or even a Substack, but like, you need somewhere that you can be like, these 50 people are my people. I'm putting them here, and then I am going to like lavish them with like, maybe it's Patreon. I don't know. Forests tend to like lavishing gifts on there. Like, people like, they like the Patreon, like sending out postcards and things. Not all of them. We're painting with a very broad brush, but in general, like, you definitely, for sure, because the community is your strength. Where do you then fall back on, Tom? Like where do you fall when like all the chips are down? It can't be on an algorithm, because they're not going to catch you.
Oh, yeah, no, I think I'm just nodding my head at absolutely everything. You guys are nailing me to the wall here. I think when the chips are down, I default to what can I give them and what can I give them now, that's going to make them happy or remind them of me or things like that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so you need somewhere. Anyway, like, I would not pick an algorithm, because you don't, someone with an algorithm, because you don't have access. But even if you do, like, I think Chuck Palahniuk is a pretty good example of a Substack that's a forest. He just does daily posts, like daily. Erica Drayton, I think, is probably a pretty good forest Substack. She just writes like 100-word stories every single day, get people to like you a little bit more. So I'm not going to tell you where to do the thing, but you need to take control of where your community meets. And it needs to be like, all of my fans are like wannabes. Like, this is the wannabe symbol. Like, they all need to, everyone who it was a wannabe pretty much identifies with this Melissa the wannabe. And you need a place to gather. That's probably not your email list, because you're probably only going to send weekly at the best case scenario. You need somewhere where people can gather and talk about what their favorite Cheeto is, or like what their favorite party is, or like what they did this past weekend, or like whatever stuff. Because the more people are around, the reason that forests work with interconnectivity is the more you are around a forest, the more you love them. That's not always true with every other ecosystem. Like, I am a tough pill to swallow for long periods of time. Like, eventually you get sick generally of me. And I know, like, at 55 minutes, I literally have a timer in my head that's like, after 5 minutes, I leave. I will walk away when I meet somebody, because I know that's about the limit of somebody, until they know me more, that can handle me. Like, I for years, I had a rolling timer that would work. Does that work for you, Tom? Do you have any follow-ups to me? Or Monica, do you have anything to say?
I mean, I'm still laughing at it. It's very true. Like, if you meet Russell in person, he will walk away. And if he's in a group, he like literally sets a timer for like how long he has to go without talking.
I do.
It's very, very true. Yeah, so that's definitely like, I mean, it's kind of a tundra thing, because they are kind of like, they're there and they're everywhere, and then they're pulled back. But yeah, Tom, so does that make sense of like gathering your people in one place and being able to talk about macaroni as much as you want?
Or... It really does. Even as you're saying it, I'm realizing in the last several months, I've posted 2 or 3 short personal essays on my Facebook author page, and those blew up. Had nothing to do with my fiction. And so that makes total sense. I have one closing question on behalf of myself and my other foresty friends out there. Since we're so reliant upon connection and interconnection with our people and our readers. This is something I've struggled with for a long time. How do we address or get past the sensation that we're selling band candy? Like, yeah, I wrote a new book, but only my friends are going to buy it. Even if it's 2 million friends, they're still just friends. You know what I mean? How do we kind of get over that sensation? If we should, maybe we shouldn't. I don't know.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't know if you should, like, I think that you go, I would like, I want to make the deepest thing that I can that like maybe only one person will get. Like, I am always putting jokes in my book work that like it's literally for one person. And so I think the more look, so the problem with it, the big struggle of a forest is it's very easy to develop parasocial relationships with like a forest, and then they start like losing, like they start feeling like they're giving always, and like it's and so, but I think that if you are considering everyone a Tom head or a Levineaholic or whatever it is, like you kind of are making all of your work for them, right? And
Yeah.
I think that Taylor Swift like literally writes one person into her stuff. Like she will literally go into Tumblr and just like comment on like posts about her that her friends are there, like she's one of their friends, like being relatable. Relatable is a huge advantage for a forest, but it then becomes like you have to find ways to protect your energy.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is like, so what I've seen, I just watched this interview with a clear forest who had gotten huge success right out of the gate. And what they did was that they did like they were kind of a good girl and did what they were supposed to do and wrote the tropes into their book and all this stuff. But then they, like, you could tell from the way they talked about the book, like the books were not like written to market exactly. They did have the tropes, but they were not written to market. Like and I won't give a specific example, but yeah, you could just tell like they had written the tropes in, but they had twisted it. And so why did their readers still support them? It really came down to they wrote a lot of like their personal selves and their personality into the book as well. And so things that they had personally dealt with, like depression, for example, was something they had dealt with. So they had depression in the book, and it's like I mean, these are like romances, so you can already tell like this is not really written to market. Like depression, like a small town romance, like that's not a typical thing you would find in a small town romance. And it was great. Like their people loved it. They wrote about like pregnancy difficulties. They wrote about postpartum depression. Like they were writing about these things that you don't find in it. They also wrote like people from their life as like characters into the books. And then the people like their readers like loved that character, and they were like, actually that character is based on this person in my life, and so like here's some stories about that person in my life. And so it's like that, I think, is kind of the answer. First of all, it's what you should do to be successful. And like part of the challenge of the forest is you have to find some area where there's kind of like a gap in the marketplace. And like, so this particular person, they had found like a sub niche of romance that was like, it was like, I think it was like curvy. It was like a reverse harem. Like it was just like a bunch of things kind of mixed together where it was like, there weren't really a ton of books there. But like reverse harem was popular enough. Curvy girls is like, there's just not enough of those out there. So it's kind of easy to get some traction there too. And they were able to kind of put that together to just get that initial audience. And I think that's where forests struggle. Forests struggle to get that initial swell of audience. But once they have that initial swell of audience, then it's just like people they just like you. Like they like you as a person. They like your characters on a personal level. And so the more you can connect your personality into your books while also like somewhat hitting like tropes and stuff, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like you kind of get to like, if you can get over the 80% mark, you're probably good. Then it's like, as you're selling your band candy, it's like, I mean, all you have to say is like, oh, like tell a story about this person who you base this character on. And then people are like, I love this person. They have these great mac cheese recipes, macaroni recipes. And then you're like, yeah, I write, this character in the book is basically them. And they make mac and cheese in the book. So like, go read the book. And that's a little bit simplified, but hopefully that kind of gives you some ideas of how the forest works.
So very much. Thank you both. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing what happens. Hopefully we'll see you in October. All right, let's do Janet, because Janet had a question about starting from scratch. And I think it's good to follow up for this one. And then we're going to move on to non-forests.
Yes. This was the list. Somebody asked about that. I reposted the list in the chat. Thanks, Tom. That was awesome. Okay, Janet. I realized that I am supposed to bring you on. Apologies. Okay. Lot to talk, and let me pull Tom off.
Are you good? Can you hear me?
Hi, Janet.
Yep.
How are you?
Hi.
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So it sounds like you're a forest too.
Yes. I'm a forest, but I'm also I'm going to say relatively new author. I have seven novels out. First one published January of 2022. And I've really been struggling with finding an audience, finding a readership. Like Tom, I can say I'm an award-winning author, some pretty big awards, but it doesn't translate into sales all on its own.
Absolutely.
So this summer, I was spending a lot of time thinking about my brand values and where I really wanted to go. And it dawned on me that I didn't want to be in KU anymore. I didn't want, after starting to listen to some of what you guys are talking about, and I'm thinking, the KU readers, they aren't my readers. I want my readers. I want to connect with them more. I started thinking about subscriptions and direct sales and all of those things. So I'm in the process of moving to wide.
Awesome. And I think that's good for a forest. Forests tend to do better wide than in KU. The deserts and tundras tend to do, I think, the best in KU, because tundras are very good at building excitement and hitting number one, and then trailing off. It's the classic Sky Warren strategy of like you hit the top and then you trickle down into the next release. And then deserts are very good at just like knowing all of the tropes and like hitting one, and they're usually very focused on one platform, whereas you need to, as we talked about with Tom, be a lot more places, because your foresty people are going to like be all over the place, right?
Yeah. And I've always got, it's those pieces of me that I really, I've taken classes from Sky and stuff like that. And, the idea of writing trope based and to market. I mean, sure, I can be sorted kind of to market and close and use tropes, but they're always in my own way. And I can't get away from that because it feels so disingenuous.
Ooh, you said the thing that most forests, the thing for most forests, which is it gets in your own way.
Yeah.
Like a classic forest, like will try to be a desert and it will get in their own way, and they will write books that feel that like don't hit the tropes enough, and then don't feel personal enough to like succeed anyway. And so they're losing out on both sides.
Yes. Yeah, so, I mean, my rule for a forest is try to hit the tropes to 80%. You'll at least hit the tropes to 60%. And then the rest can be you.
Yes. So my question to you is, where does your community gather? Where do the Jan aficionados go?
I'm not sure yet. I only just started a Facebook page like last month. And like I said, I am planning on starting a subscription soon-ish. Sure. So, there's lots of things to do to get there. And so that's really where I want them to gather, is going to be probably on Ream, because, then I can share more about my books. Like one of my big things, I love writing, the research notes and stuff like that, and sharing, this is the place that inspired this part of this book and things like that. And I love sharing that sort of stuff. And I think that this subscription is a really easy, nice way to be able to share that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to find people for it. That's the starting from zero.
Yes.
Monica, do you want to start, or should I start?
I mean, I think it's a good question. Like, how do you find the forest? Aside from what we've already said, is like hit the tropes to a certain level. So yeah, Russell, what do you want to say about that?
So the first thing is a forest is going to generally take the longest time to grow because you're pulling in people from so many different places, but you need to pull them into a place. Whether that is Ream, whether it is Substack, whether it is your mailing list, whether it is not a Facebook group, please God, don't use any more, like don't use an algorithm that could destroy you. Like I probably would not start with a circle community or something like that, or a mighty network, because like those cost per month. But you need somewhere where you can do all the things we just told Tom, and it needs to be one place that you can send people. Secondarily, I'm not going to explain what a flywheel or a funnel is. Like you are a flywheel without a funnel, and a tundra is a funnel without a flywheel.
Yeah.
So usually the thing that when we talk about evolution, there are paths. So usually for a grassland or a forest, the thing that they need to set up somewhat quickly is aquatic too. But like, since we're talking about forests, is they need to embrace their inner tundra, because they need to be able to funnel people. They need to be able to build an opt-in to super fan. They need to be able to figure out how, because what happens with forests a lot is like they'll use a book funnel promo and then they'll be like, I never get any sales from it. And you're like, well, like, did you bring them through and did you give them an offer?
Right.
Did you do anything? And they're like, no. Do you send emails regularly? They're like, nope. I'm like, well, like, no wonder no one ever buys your stuff, because like no one ever, like you've done nothing to help bring them along. So like you need to have, wherever you're going to make your base, home base, and it probably should be somewhere besides your mailing list, because you want them to be able to have as much Janet interaction as possible. You want to be able to like show them your quirky personality. So you need an email list, but you probably you need to be using it to share things that are outside of what I would be able to share. And most importantly, you need to be able to create a way to bring in a bunch of people at once, whether that's giveaways or opt-ins or ads, or like whatever way you choose. You need to create a system that brings people from zero to loving you, and then gives them the opportunity to join your community to learn even more. And then you need to be filling either with an VA or yourself. Like you need to be propagating and populating it with things that people can sort of gather around. And you need to be doing it as if, so my friend makes White Vault and a bunch of other podcasts, and he has a hugely successful Patreon. He's like, we were acting as if we had 1,000 people in our Patreon when we had one person. And this is the hardest part about subscriptions. You have to act as if, like our Substacks, even though they have hundreds of people subscribed to it now, I was acting when I had 0 people as if I had 25,000 people, like I do 20,000 people roughly that I do now. So when you're new, you need, as a forest, you need one, where are you directing all these people from all these different platforms so that you can activate them? And like Brandon Sanderson, it used to be, if you think of like the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter, it all started with this 100,000 person Reddit forum. Now Reddit is like a whole different thing, but like he basically was like, surprise, Reddit. And then like they all splintered out to their things, and like it all became, he also had like a team doing it, but like most of that initial traction came from that Reddit community. So you need that place, and then you need a funnel on top of it to drop people into.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I agree, like very much. I mean, nothing about these types really changes the fact that you need a base. And I think like Russell talked about it in terms of a sales funnel. The way I think about it is really just, you need like several thousand people, like you need several thousand readers. And that means you probably especially as a forest. I mean, so deserts can go find, if you say like you need 3,000 readers, they'll go figure out how to like optimally get those 3,000 readers. And maybe it's like they get 10,000 readers and have a 30% conversion rate or whatever. When we tell a forest, you need, let's say you need, I don't know, 1,000 readers, let's say, just as like, that is your baseline. And then you could start doing a lot of the stuff. It's gonna be a lower conversion rate for you. So you actually need to reach like 20,000 or 30,000 people. And it's like you're like, if you're doing it through advertising, like we see a lot of forests who are successful on retailers in KU or not in KU. And it's like they needed to get they just needed to get that base, but they have to reach like more people because their work is not perfectly optimized to convert that genre reader, basically. So they need to be able to grab and like appeal enough to whatever that genre reader is and wants, and then a portion of those people will come over, versus like a desert where like a lot of those people will come over, like the majority of them will come over. And so I think that's where forests get really stuck with this, is that you kind of just have to accept that you need to reach like probably a lot more people than what the kind of mainstream advice is, and don't try to reach them optimally, because it's just not, it doesn't make sense for you to do that. Just try to reach them. So I think just reaching more people, like just upping the number of people that you are able to reach, until you get and have a goal. Like maybe it's like you just want 500 people, 500 serious people who actually really like you and like your work in this whatever group, Facebook group, I don't know what it is, but have those people in the group, and then they will go out and find more people for you. Like, I think that's a great thing about a forest, is because they know that they know who you are. Like, they know who you are. They know they like you. They know that anybody who likes you and anybody who likes a lot of the same things as them is going to like you. And so it's like I see, the other thing I see is like, even with advertising, I'm thinking of like, Emily Kimmelman is like kind of, I don't know if she's a forest, but she does like, I mean, a lot of her ads are just like her on camera talking about like politics, to be honest, and talking about like what she believes, for example, and has nothing, I mean, really has nothing to do with her books, but she's kind of like, well, if you like what I'm saying, like, you will also like my characters, you will also like my books, because they're a lot like me. And she appeals to a lot of the things that forests appeal to. Like, her slogan is like, the dog doesn't die, but the bad guys do, which is incredibly clever. And it's like, she's got like this vigilante kind of branding, but I mean, it's like, you look at her and you can tell it's all like, her books are just an extension of herself. And I think that's really important for a forest to understand, more so than really any of the other types. Like, the other types focus a lot more on the content, and like, they're a little bit more separate, where like the forest is like, your book is just an extension of your personality. And once you start to realize that, like, first of all, you'll write better books that resonate more with your readers, but secondly, you can lead with yourself. And that may be uncomfortable, but that's how you find readers. And so like, you just like, when you think of Brandon Sanderson's success, he just hit like 20 conventions like every year or whatever he did. He shook hands with like millions of people, and a lot of people don't like him. Like you find a Brandon Sanderson hater, they really hate Brandon Sanderson.
I mean, literally, like Wired or whatever magazines,
yeah, like the dude spends so much time with him. He's like, I hate this guy. Like, he's boring.
So like, I mean, I don't know if Emily Kimmelman is a forest. Like, I know RJ Blaine is a forest because she said it like publicly.
She said she was, yeah,
to us. And
yeah.
So like, one of the things that RJ did was she did every group promo. Like, I used to run them, and like, she did literally every single one I think I've ever done. It was like 50. She worked with any time there was any newsletter thing, she did it. Like, anytime there was like anyway there was a way to find new readers, she like would at least try it. But her thing came, she did her magical, it was called a magical romantic comedy with a body count. She basically created this whole new RJ Blaine genre. And like, because that was so successful, it brought people back to her other works. So one thing that forests really need to do, this part is confusing, Daniel. This part, I admit, like, we call it a shade tree, which is something that's going to be above all the others that are going to bring people into your universe and into your work. And she used that 20 book series, I think now. And after it had like 10 books, like she was basically able to write anything that she wanted. And with and I was friends with her. I've been friends with her for so long. Like, I remember when she was like struggling to do these things, and like, it's just eventually something caught on. And then the rest of her ecosystem worked. Like, she built the whole thing. And then all she needed was the hit. And when the hit came, when she built a long enough series, so like that hit could come, literally if you're on RJ Blaine, if you're on RJ Blaine's email list, it's literally written by her cats. Like, it's called her name, like it's called the Sneaky Kitty Critic or something. It's not even like, her website isn't even rjblaine.com. I have no idea what she does, but like
I don't even understand it.
Works. Like, it all works because it's all like her quirky sense of humor. She has more inside jokes than any other person I've ever seen in indie publishing. And so that's a lot of things, Janet. Do any of those resonate with you?
So many of them. I think one of the things that that hit me the most, and I made a little star by it, was when Monica was talking about, you need fans. Forest probably needs more. You need a bigger funnel, because one of the things on my last release, I actually used Booksprout for the first time as opposed to just going through my newsletter. And there were a few reviews on there that was like, oh, the blurb sounded interesting, so I picked it up. And I didn't expect to like it this much. And that's something that I see in my reviews, is the wow, this was really good one, because it's not, like you said, it's not optimized for the readers in my genre. So
and also, I don't know if you're going to need more super fans at the bottom of your funnel, but you will most certainly need the most casual readers at the top of your funnel, because you're going to lose way more than another probably for a different reason than a Tundra, but like similar to a Tundra, like you're just going to have to put a ton of people at the top, because like they're not just trying to like the tropes of the genre, they have to really like you. And so so awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing where you set up your community and how you set your funnel. We do have a course called Build a Super Fandom in our course bundle, and we're going to be talking about a lot more of this in October, 3 weeks from now.
Yes, so we have a course coming out. It's really a lot like this. So it's a mini course. We're going to go through each of the types. Each one gets one call. And so you can learn really about the whole system, which is very cool, because you can start to think like, who should I be co-writing with? Who should I be partnering with? How can I, like, I kind of need some of that desert energy. Like, how do I get that in my business or whatever? And so you'll be able to spot people who are like really good fits for like partnerships and anthologies and all sorts of stuff. So we'll be talking about that too. But then we'll do stuff like this. So like, it would be like a whole 2-hour call just for Forest, if that makes sense. And we'll be doing some more live coaching. So yeah, we have that. It starts, I think it's October like all 3rd. Yeah. So there's 5 Tuesdays in October, and we're meeting all 5 of the Tuesdays until October 31st, I think. So so I don't have the link. I think it's do you know what the link is?
It's authorecosystem.com/live.
All right, cool.
I will put that in, but first I think it's time to switch things up with who we're going to bring on next. So the first person to say an ecosystem that they are that's not a forest is going to be the next person we choose.
Oh, okay.
Oop, there it is. Sherry Hayes.
Sherry. All right, Sherry, you're up. Let me bring you up. There you are.
Hello. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry. So Sherry is a grassland, according to her.
What makes you think you're a grassland?
And according to your comments, I would agree with you.
Yeah, according to the quiz. I like to dive deep into subjects. I also my best-selling series that I have is a 5-book serial series about a young woman who was rescued from human trafficking. And so, and that series has outsold any of my other books by at least 10 times.
Wow.
So
how long is that series?
It's currently 5 books, and it's sold about 20,000 copies of the entire series.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm just I struggle with I guess I struggle with kind of getting, I have super fans for that series, but it's like just as a whole, it's kind of, I don't know what to do with it. I started a Patreon, and I'll ask, and I followed you guys and try to follow you guys' advice and like ask engagement questions, and I get crickets. I mean, granted, my Patreon is very small, but like I posted new covers because I recovered one of my older series, and I was like, which one of the new series covers is your favorite? I get nothing. Like, none of the people responded at all.
Well,
so
that seems pretty clear that you're not a force then. Like that's,
no,
that's
I'm really
clear.
not.
Yeah, you're not a force.
Okay, so I guess my first question would be, how are you putting out hooks into the world to bring people in over long periods of time outside of your books?
I have a pretty strong presence on Facebook. And I send out a weekly newsletter as well, but my Facebook has over 6,000 followers, and I get decent engagement over there. Although what I typically get engagement on are my questions. That gets more response than anything else. Like, I'll ask, what are you currently reading? What was the saddest book you've ever read? That type of stuff. Those tend to get really, really good engagement. Or if I ask, my best engaging post over there was actually when I asked how long you've been with your significant other. I got like 30,000 comments on that.
Wow.
And then, like I said, I have a newsletter. I have about 5,000 subscribers over there, but most of them do not engage unless I maybe post like a link to a freebie or something like that. So
sure, same. Like okay, Monica, you're a grassland, so take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is like, if this is your best-selling series, I mean, to be, my question would be, because like, and even all the questions you said that you gave as examples that were getting engagement, they all pretty much had to do with the series, which I'm looking at on Amazon. I'm assuming, can I say the series name out loud?
Yeah, you can say it.
I'm assuming it's just Finding Anna series.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and like, so I guess like I would just ask, like, why not share some research about like human trafficking and that type of thing. I know it's kind of heavy, but
okay.
have you tried doing anything like that? Or
not the human trafficking specifically. I've done a lot with sharing like the BDSM aspects of the series.
Gotcha.
I mean, I suppose I could lean, I mean, as far as that aspect, I haven't leaned uber heavy on it. I mean, I've shared stuff with, about the lifestyle and things like that. I haven't gone into a whole lot with the human trafficking, but I actually have a couple that has been living the lifestyle for over 20 years that helps me. They proofread everything. So I've mentioned it, but I haven't really leaned overly heavy on that, and I haven't lived with the human trafficking or the PTSD and all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of research. So I guess I put it all in my books. Like I focus so much on putting it in my books. I've not really shared it a lot on that aspect in my like social media or my Patreon or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Is that something you think I should do? Is that something that would, you think,
I guess
engaging?
I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at your reviews and like trying to see, why were people like, what are people excited about this book? I see, I'm just looking at the mentions, and it's like human trafficking is one, young woman, main characters, um finding Anna is one of them. Sherry Hayes, of course, but it's like yeah, I think, I think like what is it that is exciting people about this book? Like what are, I'm seeing, it's hard for me to parse these like as we're going. Obviously you have a ton of reviews on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I would say
it's
also
hard.
you haven't mentioned what you're doing to bring people, like all of the things to like, so social media is a um
Yes.
like gain.
Mm-hmm.
And as a grassland, your goal should be long term. Like, how can I write something like a blog post or a like something now today that in 10 years will still be bringing people into the series? And social media isn't that thing.
Right.
So
You need like a
aside from
longer form area.
I mean, like writing 20 books, like pulling the Elena Johnson and like writing 100 books on cowboys is a pretty good way to be a grassland, because you have like hooks 100 different places. But like you then also have to write, it seems like 95 more books. My friend Jonas Saul, my agent, is also has like a 30 book series, and each of them are standalone. So like they're all little hooks in. But my question, and the thing that I think would probably be helpful for any of your series, but definitely like for this series, is like, what are you doing? How are you making your SEO game strong? Like, how are you making your content marketing strong? Like, how are you doing these things now that will pay off for the long haul? I mean, Monica, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but like, can you parse the words I'm saying into grassland?
I mean, so like you're doing questions right now. Probably as a grassland, you'll do better with like some longer, like what Russell said. Either you explode and make like 100 books, which you probably don't need quite that many, but or you can hook in, you can leave little hooks on the internet through a more long form content. And so I always think of like YouTube, podcasting, and blogging, basically. Those are kind of like the strengths of the grassland. Doing like TikTok or like any of the short form stuff, those tend to be strengths of other types, just to be honest.
Especially
I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, like especially deserts, but like other types can kind of use it. But yeah, it just does not work well for the grassland. So
and even your email list, sorry,
email
like
list,
even your email list like is a ephemeral product on some level. Monica and I get in this argument constantly, maybe not constantly, but like at least once every 3 months. She's like, why are we doing these email sequences that are just going to be like useless after we do them? Because like they don't have no longevity like online or anywhere. My thing is because money. And like, but like that is the eternal tundra evergreen struggle, is like the mailing list and even a community on some level. All of these things that don't have long-term viability are not putting pennies in the bank, or they put a penny in a bank one day, but they don't add up to dollars over time. Because, and if you're not thinking about how can I write or guest post or do all of these things for the long term, like if you don't have like a vanity domain that you can make link to whatever you want, like all of that stuff that makes people search for you and think of you as like I don't know, an expert in writing or an expert in human trafficking or like an expert in whatever. All that stuff is what drags people then to your work and makes that connection stronger.
So basically you're kind of, is what I'm hearing, so I want to make sure that I'm understanding, is you're recommending kind of, if I took themes within my books and wrote blog posts about them, and then like put at the bottom some sort of link to my, my newsletter and my Patreon and my book page or what have you, that would probably be more effective for me than like, and then posting a gazillion things on social media, because I could use social media to direct people to my blog and get, based on the themes and the kind of, get into my books and get that emotional connection from there to then lead them to the sales. Is that what I'm hearing?
So I mean, you don't have a bank, right? Like, you're putting pennies in like a fountain, not a bank. And you're walking away from the fountain, and like it's like, okay, it's a wish, not a investment. I don't know if that made any sense, but
no, but it's like
people, you need a bank.
Yes. Okay. You need a bank. And also, so I think something that would be really interesting is like, let's say you must have a billion things of research that you've done or are working on, like just even an article that like is coming out now that's like, this is a thing that is relevant, is a theme. You talk about this, and then you like transition in the second half to be like, here's how I put this into John. He's like, here's how this psychology relates to John, or like, here's what I found out while researching John about this kind of psychology or psychopathy or whatever that thing is, to tie those things together. So it doesn't have to be just like, this is an article, I'm reporting on it, but it can be what people want to see from a grassland. And we think you're a grassland, we think you're right, but like the grassland strength is saying, how can I make this one article that may take me an hour to write pay off for the next 5 years? How can I make it rank very highly for different search terms? And how can I make it easy for people to consume so that they fall into a funnel to buy my work over and over and over and over again? This is why something like we both have a Substack. But like, this is why Substack works so well, because like there's like the penny in the bank that you're building the membership, and then also it's giving you SEO. Unlike Ream or Patreon, you're not getting that good SEO like you do on Substack. But that's kind of what I think you're on the right track, but there is a way to mesh your themes and your work and also tie it into the writing process. Kind of like, who's the one who's Bones? The person who wrote Bones. Like, she was
Kathy Reichs.
Yes, like she was a pathologist. And like she wrote just a ton of interesting stuff about like how her pathology went into the books and how the books built on each other and what cases those books were based on. And all of that stuff was like part of the fascinating part of that series.
Okay, so I wanted to address this thing that it just came up as a question. So like, the worst thing a grassland can do is put up a paywall around their content in some ways, because the grassland, like the content is the marketing. So somebody asked like, why is Substack better than Patreon? It's not really that. It's that like you need to put your best stuff out there for free, and then you put a little bit of your like you're really, really like, not it doesn't even have to be your best stuff. It's really just the stuff that your people will want to read. That has to be behind the paywall. So whether it's Substack or, I mean, Patreon, the problem is that there is no SEO on that. Whereas Substack, there's like this ecosystem of people who are supportive of writers specifically. So I would not do like Patreon is fine, but like you need a place to find people, which is like a blog or an email list or something, and then you can bring them back to Patreon to pay you for like more. The other thing I want to say is that the grassland connects with their audience around a topic, and around just being I don't want to say the best at the topic, but being like intensely interesting about a topic. And people are always like, well, that sounds very nonfiction-y. And like you don't have to go the nonfiction route. It could also be that you like we're suggesting the nonfiction route because you have 5 books. So it's like, if you probably the thing that you could do is put out that 6th book, that 7th book. Like if you had 20 books, then that would be great. On the same, like kind of on the same don't want to say topic, but like kind of.
Well,
like
yeah,
you have these hooks.
Yeah. My long-term plan for this is that either the 6th book will be the last book in the Finding Anna series, but then I plan to do a spin-off series about another slave that was in the owned by the same master as Brianna. And then I want to take, after that, I want to take and do a spinoff kind of with the two of them. To create like to create like a where they, you know, I basically they're going and helping other people that have been in similar situations. So I do plan on keeping it going in the human trafficking realm. And a lot of my books do deal with people who've dealt with trauma, both male and female. You know, whether it's domestic violence or you know, some or anything like that. It's yeah. So yeah, I have kind of a similar, I do kind of have a basic theme. So,
yeah, I mean it's great.
Very, very grasslandy.
Yeah.
And
well, definitely you want to have one series, like one thing, like for as long as possible.
As long as possible. And you can start a second thing, but when you like get this first one off the ground, and it is kind of off the ground, but like as you like kind of double down on it, it'll really explode. The other thing is that Grassland, I mean, you're starting very niche, but like you said, you have a place to expand. So like maybe at first you're doing more about human trafficking, but then you expand it to just general trauma, and that's kind of your long-term plan. And like that's what your book series deals with. As you said, you know, you have kind of this I'm assuming happy couple by the time you get to this other series that is now dealing with helping different people through the trauma. But yeah, so I think that's kind of like how you expand it from like a topic level is like the thing that the Grassland does really well is they start very niche and like find like their kind of exact audience, which I think you should do with this series. And then you need to weave the rest in. Like you have other series that deal with general trauma. So like you start to weave in that trauma to what you're already doing and kind of you're writing at the edge of your topic. And as you start to do that, that's how a Grassland accumulates more audience, is they write at these edges. And they just keep like bringing new pieces of the same topic, but at the edge of the topic in, and they kind of allow the topic to evolve over time. So, and I think that's what you're already doing with your series. You could just double down and get that series out like faster, but if you need time on that, then I think this other piece is really valuable to hook it into, like it could be short stories too, but I think you'll have more success hooking it into like the actual just topic.
Yeah, I've found that short stories don't do very well for me. I've written a couple of short stories and I've written a novella. And I, for some reason, that does not seem to interest my readers at all. I don't know if that's a Grassland thing. I'm assuming probably because I do dive deeper, right?
You can't go deep enough with it.
Well, and
right.
I think,
it's hard for me to write a short story.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes perfect sense. But yeah, I would look at somebody, I mean, even someone like John Grisham. Like John Grisham was a lawyer, but like he used that to make really in-depth books. And like, I think he used his topic expertise to like make really interesting books, and people followed his books because of his. Kathy writes too. Like she didn't write like nonfiction books. She wrote fiction books, but she like used her subject matter expertise as the reason why you should hook in and go deep with her.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And just out of curiosity, like how often do you think I should be posting like these in-depth blog posts? I mean, is this something that I should be doing weekly or monthly, or it just random? I mean, I'm assuming not just randomly, because you want some consistency there.
I mean, what can you do? I think that's more important.
Yeah.
And also like
can you do while you're doing your book? I should say.
While you're writing. And also like it doesn't have to be in depth. Like it's kind of like what Russell said, like you could take like a curation route as well. like, hey, like somebody else wrote this thing. So you look at, it's a nonfiction person, but like Austin Kleon is a great example of just a curator grassland. He's got 3 books. They're great. Or 4 books, I guess, if you count the Blackout one. He like just does a Substack, and like tons and tons of people subscribe to this Substack. And it's like kind of just like he posts a bit of his art every day, and then he posts and like the art's not even like it's I don't know, like I like, as I'm like, just on a personal level, like I don't even love like a lot of his art that he's posting right now. He's trying to find his new thing, but he always ties in creativity to it, which is what his books are about. And then he does like a lot of curation of like cool things he found that are relevant to his audience. Like and like that's the important thing. If you're going to do curation, like a forest can do cool things they found and like period, end of sentence. A grassland can do cool things they found tied into their topic, because grasslands connect with their audience over their topic. And so if it's not like, relevancy is kind of key for a grassland, versus the forest, which they get to kind of float around to any topic, because it's just their presence that is exciting.
You need to, so like, look at Austin, look at Monica. I also do one. Tim Ferriss does one. Like, there's a bunch of fiction people. Tailbone, well, I'm going to talk about Substack ones. Tailbones does one, which is a fiction one. But like, I get more comments on my stupid sub roundup that takes me like 30 minutes to put together than I do from like the article that I spent 10 hours on that week. And a lot of times, because people are very interested in the topic that you talk about. And like, so that is why for a grassland, you really do want to be a subject matter expert. And that because that will help sell your books.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That makes sense.
Any final questions?
My only other, I guess the only other thing I'm really kind of curious about is kind of with the Patreon thing. I mean, you said that I should have the or at least the most, a lot of content that's for free, and then driving them in. Right now, my main focus on Patreon is I post the chapters as I write them to my new stories.
Sure.
So is that should I be giving more content over there as well, or should I just kind of focus on that?
I mean, Patreon has no discoverability just as a platform.
It has anti-discoverability.
It's really not. I mean, I don't want to say it's not ideal for a grassland, because I'm not trying to get you to switch platforms. Like, you look at Substack is like a perfect platform for a grassland, because there's like it's
organic
just
discoverability.
Like,
there's cross posting. There's
like it's really built on content marketing. Patreon is kind of the opposite of that in terms of a platform. You can make Patreon work, but like, you have to understand that your Patreon is really your paywall. I think more so than anything. There's just like, you can post stuff for free, but people can't find it easily. So it would be better to post that free stuff elsewhere. And it could be your chapters if that's what you want, and that could probably perform well. But if not that, then your topic.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also, it's SEO optimized. Substack. Okay. I mean, I am very pro Substack.
Right.
To that one question that's there, is Rim or Substack better for grassland? Monica, I know you have both, or you set up both.
Yeah.
I think that the organic discoverability on Substack is just obscene compared to anywhere else. Yeah. And the community there is there's just more of them.
Yeah. Is there a problem with doing both? Is there a problem with both? Like, if I had a Patreon and a Substack, and because my big thing with Patreon that I found, because of last year, they kind of changed things. I had joined maybe about 6 months after I joined and set up my Patreon. They basically started making their things about the 18+ content. And because of, I write more erotic stuff, they require it to have that, which means that, if somebody is just searching my name, they can't find me. They have to have an exact link. Is that the same over on Substack?
No.
I would probably not put I would probably not put erotic stuff on Substack. I don't know what the thing is there, but like, no, there's no like more, as far as I know, there's no content warnings. Like they're very like hands off over there. You just might get people who like would stay away if there was like a bunch of erotic content behind a paywall, but I don't know what that is.
Okay.
But like, as far as I know, there's no.
Okay. All right, I'll take a look at it. I'll look into it a little bit more. I may just, because I don't want to get rid of my Patreon because I already have some people on there. I would feel bad trying to like get them to switch, but it may be worth, you know, having both of it and just having them be kind of identical, like, you know, mirror images of each other as far as cost and all that kind of stuff and what I'm posting. Okay.
And there's also only one thing you can do on subs. You can only have one pay tier.
Well,
so
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much, Sherry.
Thank you.
Do you want to do a Tundra next, Russell?
I do. Should we answer this question?
Yeah, I feel like this question will lead nicely into Tundras.
Okay. So outside of Jonathan, who I literally did a 30-minute session with last week, anyone else who's a Tundra, comment.
Daniel
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
He's the other one that.
Daniel had commented earlier.
Okay. Right. So the difference between a flywheel and a funnel. A flywheel is a very recent marketing tactic that I think HubSpot invented in 2018 or 19. The idea of a flywheel is it is a consistent marketing experience. People come in, they get engagement, they get attention, and it never ends. It just kind of keeps circling, and the bigger that it goes, the easier it is to maintain. So like an email list, if you do it every week, or a circle community, if you keep just dropping people in, the more people that go through and complete that experience, the better. A funnel is meant to go from a top to a bottom, just like a funnel. It's meant to take a bunch of prospects and make some of those people leads and make some of those people buyers and make some of those people super fans. Like it's an experience to get from the most value out of it's a monetary extraction, value extraction vehicle. And a Tundra is basically a living funnel. Like they are just a living funnel, and a forest and a grassland are like a living flywheel. And together a Tundra needs to build a flywheel that will keep people interested when they're not. Like a funnel says, if someone is not buying now, they're not in your ideal audience. A flywheel says those people who aren't buying now also have the same value. They just need more love and attention. Yeah. They just are buying for free. They're still great evangelists. They're still great word of mouth. Right. A funnel is basically, if you do not buy now, you have no value. And they're
you're stuck somewhere in the funnel. Yes. And like, we have to start over with you. Kind of. Yes.
So that is why basically the grassland and a forest need to build a funnel, and a Tundra needs to build a flywheel that's either this is either a grassland strategy or a forest strategy.
All right. So let's bring Daniel on. Hello.
Hi, Daniel. More confused or less confused now than you were an hour and a half ago?
I don't know.
All right. So, Daniel, tell people a little bit about yourself, and let's get into it.
Okay. I'm working on my 16th novel right now. I've been publishing since 2012. I've completed one series called The Freelance Familiars, which I kickstarted successfully, a box set last year.
And I've very much enjoyed the books that I've read of that series.
Oh, thank you very much. And I am my current series is The Full Moon Medic, which is about a werewolf paramedic in Portland.
Cool.
And these books kind of like take current shifter tropes and throw them all out and start new with a completely different template. As kind of seeing the first book blew up, I sold 20,000 copies of the first book when I released it, and series has slowly been falling off each release. It's also been a year between each book, which might be the bigger problem there. Right now, I have been kind of paralyzed this year. So I was starting to convert into more of a Kickstarter and that sort of model, direct sales. And unfortunately, I got seized by a bug in my brain, wrote an erotica web novel in the beginning of the year, and that's releasing that on Patreon, and I've got like $800 a month coming in via there, but that's been sort of a constant attention drain outside of writing. And so I've got, for my main full moon medic stuff, I built a I built a web store, and then realized, I really need to finish this novel, and I haven't done anything with it since. And this novel, which is a book 4, has become a two-headed monster, and it's at least 2 months behind where I wanted it to be. And I'm not going to release it my usual October, I don't think, at this rep. Right. So I'm very much, I guess, a Tundra. I write a thing. It's a sparkly thing. I say, please buy this thing. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, to various levels.
It sounds like your trope stacking skills are pretty on point. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
I guess I kind of go and find something that's interesting to me and twist it around. You can tell from, you read Off Leash. It's pretty bonkers. That was a very lark series.
Yeah. So, my question is, take all the stuff that I said, that like, to take the quiz out of it. Like, are you sure you're a Tundra? Because you really, like, I read that book. It really sounds like you're a forest.
Oh, well, maybe I keep taking your quiz and it tells me I'm a Tundra.
I think a lot of what you said was very Tundra-ish.
So a Tundra business model is built around peaking at the moment of launch and having these rolling launches that sort of, you have a long time between to hibernate and build up your audience and like do audience building activities, recover from your previous launch, and then like get everyone excited again. The reason why I talked about how forests probably need more people at the top of their funnel because they're going to lose a lot, that's because of their personality. Like their personality. And that's we burn a lot of people because we just launch a lot, and like people are just like, I don't like, they like that, they like circle, and they're like, this is too much for me, and then they run away.
Don't launch enough. It's 6, I can manage 2 books a year, and this year I'm like, I'm going to write this other thing. So my main identity people are only getting a book a year this year.
Right.
But I'm struggling with balance right now because I got panicked, and so I focused everything into this book thinking I would get it done and then do all the things. And this book has taken so long. I'm now like thinking I have to step back from this book and do some, like, dedicate some of my time, which I do writing right now, and to rebuilding my marketing sort of thing. I used to just do Facebook ads, and they stopped working this past summer, and so I shut it all down. I did a lot of cons this year, and so I kind of lost my usual Saturday sort of thing where I was kind of maintaining my marketing. And so I'm I'm kind of flailing around right now.
Cool.
Okay, so there were a couple of things you said. One was that you said you started this thing that you didn't really mean to start. It's obviously taking, I mean, to me, it sounds like you called it you didn't call it a distraction. You said that it takes up a lot of your energy. And a lot of that is because you're writing it kind of serialized on your
No,
Patreon.
it's all done. It's all done.
Okay.
Well, I'm editing it as I go, but I do have to update the site, interact with that separate community, which I love, and I've always done stuff with that community. It's always been sort of like my stress relief writing, but it's not a very lucrative or large community.
How much of your, not how much of your time does it take up, how much of your energy does it take up? Because it's a very non-tundra-y thing to do.
I mean, it's probably taking up 30%, I'd say, or so. Like, I don't know.
Tundras need a lot of recovery.
Yeah, so the problem is that tundras burn out if their launches or their things go too long. So like we have usually very little spoonage for interaction that does not, I want to say doesn't lead to sales. That makes me sound like a monster, but like that, like there are a finite number of activities that we can do and we give a lot to all of them. So like what I have found is Monica is very good at being in power saver mode, like most of the time. Like she can give a consistent 10 to 15 to 20%, just like always. Whereas like I either have to give 100% or 3%.
Yeah.
And what affected us last year was like we were both always working at like 80%, and that didn't work for either of the people. So I would say the first thing, if you want to embrace your inner tundra, is you need to find a way to, I don't want to say not give as much, but not give as much. You need to find a way to recover. Otherwise, you are going to be always on the edge of burnout or in burnout.
Yes,
definitely like been feeling that edge. I've gotten more out of like the community of that side thing right now than I probably have from my Full Moon Medic community. Like Freelance Familiars built a good niche community, but they're sort of tailing off since I'm not doing that anymore. And the Full Moon Medic community is just a little bit cooler and seems to be, I can't drag them onto my Discord. They just seem to want to stay on Facebook.
Sure. Well, this is a big problem for tundras, is giving 150% to everything, and then they can only really give 150% to like zero things, literally zero things, is 50% more than you have to give. Forrest, for instance, can go in and be very chill in a community and not like just sit and like vibe on it. The other people can either vibe in a community, or they're deserts and they have no community and they're just like working all in the background. So do you find that when you have these sort of seemingly three things, are you giving 100, trying to give 100% to all three of them at the same time?
I don't. Well, I'm always trying. Right now, for the last month, I've just been like trying to give 100% to get this book out the door, and so everything else has sort of been peripheral. I'm a slow writer. And it's just because the book has been difficult that kind of drains me for everything else. I find it very difficult to create peripheral content outside my main project. Like blog posts or anything like that. I hate that stuff. I love conversing with people. That's why I have Discords and that sort of stuff. I love, talking to you or talking to other authors. But so far, I haven't managed to like use that sort of thing where conversation can energize me in different things. But I haven't managed to make that a regular thing for peripheral content, which I think is probably the only way that will work for me. So, I've just been kind of stuck.
I mean, you have the old books. Like, so what I see people who are Tundras doing when they need a break is they're taking the previous books and like doing what you kind of did on Kickstarter last time is you launched a book box and it was just like art and like, you weren't having to create that.
Collector's edition Full Moon Medic 1 art, everything ready to go, but I haven't had the energy to make the copy to get that on Kickstarter yet because I'm working on book 4.
So here is the thing that I recommend for you is you have to think about your business like a fashion designer. A fashion designer peaks 4 times a year at New York, Paris, and whatever the other 2 fashion weeks are, Milan, and there's another one.
Yeah, Milan.
So you have to, whatever. So they are spending the whole time besides that launch week building, well, I guess the week, probably of the launch month, they're building their new collection and they're recovering and creating stuff. So they're recovering and creating, and then they're building, and then they're launching. And then they have other people to distribute that work for them to whatever. Maybe it's their galleries, or maybe it's like Macy's or J.C. Penney. But they are peaking at these. It doesn't have to be 4 times, but like instead of thinking I can't make ancillary content, if you were like, I'm going to create a world book of the burn off material, or like a cookbook, or pins, or I don't know, like I'm going to do an anthology, but I'm not going to like I'm only going to write 1 story. Everyone else is going to write a story. Like I'm going to find 10 more people to like do this. And then I'm going to hire a grassland editor to like make it all make sense. Or then you are now extending your 1 launch energy to more launches because you don't have to do it. Like you have a pin set for all of your freelance feline familiars. You have a anthology or shared world with like a bunch of people. You have all of these other pieces. You have a relaunch of like your book 1. Mm-hmm. And then if you're working this regularly, you then are able to reuse the same copy for the most. Like I almost always am just literally copy and pasting 1 landing page to the next. Like it's so boring. Everyone thinks that like it's so this like I'm doing this like new fancy thing every time. I just have one thing that works, and then I use it until it stops working. I was talking to somebody, I don't know if she's on this call right now, someone yesterday. Yes, and it's the same thing with like, you should be taking your Kickstarter and then just literally copying it to a landing page, like we talked about in the Direct Sales Accelerator. And then that becomes your ads. And then like that copy also goes to your web store. And so a lot of the Tundra is, how do I, as Monica wants to write one thing and then use it and then have that post exist forever, I want to make 1 landing page and then be able to port it to 7 or 8 different things very easily once I have a formula. And every year I can just come back and do that next thing again. Like there's always this 1 launch to do the other thing. So it sounds like you've got a lot of forest energy, at least in like your business, which is great.
Right.
Tundras above all else need to have like somewhere to distribute all of the people that don't buy, so that they don't feel like they were more than they were just the $20 bill. Like you need that flywheel working, and it sounds like you have a great flywheel working, it sounds like it's draining your energy to be able to make the work that you want to, that you need to make your tundra-idness work. So you probably need to find ways to, I don't know, hire a VA or an AI assistant or like whatever to like go in and do some of the work in your communities.
Yeah, I had a Facebook, someone posting on my Facebook page, and that made it a lot easier for me to go in and actually update people. There's definitely, like, especially when I'm stuck on a project, there's guilt where I don't want to talk to people.
Sure.
People in like I haven't written my email list in a couple months now because it's like I'm sorry, I'm still working on the thing. It's not done yet.
Yeah. So this is a uniquely Tundra problem. They always think that they need to only update people when they have like something to sell them. And that's like not an accurate depiction. So J.A. Huss has a series called The Perfect Year on YouTube. It is like Tundra 101.
She's a hardcore Tundra, yeah.
It's like Tundra 101. So and in it, she talks about how basically you peak at 4 times a year and then you use that to like roll into the next thing. Right. And you always like have this like rolling launch. And so for 2024, my challenge to you is when are the 4 times that you peak, or 3 times or 2 times? It doesn't have to be 4 times. Right. That's a lot of times to peak. When are you peaking? But more importantly, when are you recovering? And then when are you building? Because you have to, the biggest problem of a Tundra is they do not spend enough time building their audience back up again for the next launch and finding new people. They end up being like, I have 4 launches and I'm going to launch it to the same 2,000 person mailing list. And for all of the energy that we burn to like get people through our sales funnel, equally, it's the easy for us to monetize that new audience if we put them through a sales funnel because we already have that. So I would caution, exercise for you would be, when are you peaking? It's J.A. Huss, Huss. When are you peaking? When are you recovering? And when are you building? And then those months are sacrosanct. Like you have to give yourself time to recover and time to build and then time to launch. Yes, that would be that I think is the thing that's most helpful to you. Monica, anything else? So I know we're about over time.
Yeah, we're a little bit over time. Yes, I mean that's the same thing I would suggest. Is just, you need to, like, we can't really help you with the 2023 schedule.
Right. No,
because like it's kind of burned already, right? Right. I mean, it sounds like what I would say for you for 2023 is like, take a pause on some of this other stuff, finish your book, take the rest of the year off. Like I just don't think you have. I would say, like, you might want to avoid burnout because it sounds like you're gonna hit it. So like,
if you're not already in it, like you might be in it already and you just don't notice it. Like you don't always notice it when you get in it.
Right. I mean, so I think your 2023, like you said, is burned. Maybe that's like a rough word to use, but I think it's for finishing this book and like resting. And then 2024, you'll probably be able to come out guns blazing. So if you do the rest now, you'll be able to come out guns blazing. I'm going to push you to do 3, since you said you normally do 2, and you have this book that I'm assuming it can be at least 1 in the 2024 launches.
Well, look, I will release it this year.
Okay.
It's just,
Okay.
I'm almost done with it. Then I have to chainsaw edit it and hope so. November, December.
Gotcha. All right.
Sure. Well, just do less now. Figure out how to do less in 2024. It is so important for Tundras to be under leveraged. They cannot do as much as a grassland can do. They cannot do as much as a desert can do, because when they launch, they are going to launch very hard. And so they have to recover that energy when you're not launching. It is so important to be under leveraged while you are, pretend that every day is going to be a bad day, knowing that you have to launch 3 times. I'm serious. It helped me so much to be like, well, what if instead of me saying I was going to be at my best every day, I just said, I'm going to be at my worst every day. And then guess what? Some days I can do more, but every day I can do the minimum necessary to happen. And just, I really think it's like try and spend the last quarter of the year trying to get all of this stuff under control, and then just figure out when you're going to peak. And also, one of those peaks can be your membership on Patreon. I would look very much on like how to do a PBS pledge drive, because those kind of things for a Tundra are very, very, very effective. Like if you can get that same energy into like just that 1-2 week period, you'll probably see a huge surge in your Patreon subscribers during that time.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I think you need to be creative with what your launches are. It doesn't have to be books. Like it can be those ancillary products. It can be the Patreon. Like it can be all sorts of stuff. Like Russell pulls, honestly, like Russell can pull a launch kind of just out of his back pocket. I was going to say something else, but yeah, like he could just come up with a launch, and it's like the most random thing too, but it works to kind of fill his slate. And I think that's what you need, is you have a slate, and it just doesn't have to be all books. Like, it's so important to be like, what am I working on? Okay. Like, how could I launch that? Cause your subscription, your Patreon subscription is draining. Cause you're like, it's probably cause it's open all the time. Like people could join it at any time. Like there are people who do, Patreon or Ream or Substack or whatever, and like it's closed. like they only open it 4 times a year, 2 times a year. And so you could have your Patreon, it's only open like 4 weeks out of the year, like twice a year, 2 weeks each or 3 weeks each. And like that's your thing, and then it's closed, and then you're just dripping to them, happy little swimming fishes and happy little fishes. But then you open it again, and like that may save you energy, and that may give you that 3 or 4 launch push throughout the year. So people ask like, how do you close it? You can just take the tier away. So on Patreon and on Ream, you just archive the tier. Like you archive the tier, the people who are in it can stay in it. The people who are not, the people who are coming to it cannot get into it.
All right.
So,
any final questions? Because we're definitely over time now.
No, that's given me a lot to think about. Thank you guys very much.
Awesome. All right. So, I don't have much information about Ko-Fi. I honestly don't know if it's Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi, but it's like, I know that Substack is like optimized for SEO. I just don't know if Ko-Fi is. I know a lot of people use like Ko-Fi, especially artists. But I don't have like any information about the SEO. I'm sorry. And that's what you're really looking for when you're asking. That question is about SEO and discoverability. I don't know anything. I don't know that Ko-Fi that well. Sorry.
All right. Let's see. Okay. So what else do I think we're done. We're not able to do another person. How do you want to wrap this up, Russell?
Well, I think we should sort of do a wrap up, and then if anyone has any other questions, we delivered the top. Those are the 3 big ones in our audience. There are a couple of aquatics, and then some deserts. Deserts are usually happy to go off and do their own thing, and like they usually come to these things.
They like us, but.
Yeah, like they're just like, I already have all the data. Like, like they're very self-sufficient usually. For the one thing I will say about deserts is they usually have a forest pen name or something that they can't monetize, and it's almost always because you can't do the same thing with a desert as you can with a forest. So like they're like almost opposite marketing strategies of
Right.
like 0% of yourself is in a desert, 100% of yourself is in a forest. So if you have any final questions about this, or like how you can use it, like do you see like how you could now use this to build an entire system that works for you? Like, did anyone's eyes open? Like, is there anything that's still unclear? Because like we think that when we started in December of last year, when we both basically like burnt out on this hardcore and stayed burnt out for like 6 months, like we spent a lot of time figuring out why. And we came up with these ecosystems, and they have, I don't know, radically changed our working lives. Like, I mean,
Yes.
for us at least, like
They have. I mean, I think that's a great prompt. If you are able to drop like your biggest insight into like first drop your type and then drop your biggest insight into the chat, and we'll just read some of them out loud because some of them might be helpful to the other people in the chat too. So that would be, it'd be helpful to us, but it would also be helpful to everybody if we could kind of do that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the author ecosystem, our course that's coming up. It's 5 weeks. It's the 5 Tuesdays of October. I think it might be at the same time
yes.
as this. We tend to do it at this time. And you can sign up for it. It's authorecosystem.com/live. And we'll basically be doing this, but for each of the types. So we'll start with deserts. It'll go desert, grassland, tundra, forest, aquatic. And we'll explain all the types. We'll go deeper into them. We'll do some of this coaching. We'll also just riff. Like, so if we don't have a desert that wants to be coached in the first one, we'll just riff on the deserts and kind of explain like what their strengths are, what their challenges are. And that's what the class will be about. It's $300. So it's a pretty good price. And
There's a 12
I think
pay option, I think.
Yeah, I think
6 pay option.
There's like a payment plan. So again, it's just at authorecosystem.com/live. We'd love to have you in it. What else?
Some of you who are in our courses will have gotten an email last week with a discount code. So like if you can't find that, then like come and find us. While you guys are putting your the others of what you learned, I do want to just point out one thing, which was I've learned a lot about it was something like I learned a lot about every other system that I'm not. This is so important. So I'm going to give you a very simple example. This is, aside from like, it's almost more important to know this part than it is to know like what system you are. And because you want to not only evolve, but to do something like start a publishing company, like, or more importantly, you want to do an anthology. Well, or you want to do, yes, you want to do an anthology or a shared world. Well, you probably want a desert, like to do their book or their part of it, like as close to launch as possible, because they're going to be able to take advantage of all of the tropes that are happening literally right now. And you're probably, so you might want, if you're doing, let's say a shared world that's like 12 months, you probably want like a desert every 3 months, because like they're going to be able to pop you right what's hot now, but their work's going to be more ephemeral than the other ecosystems, because once that trope's done, it's probably going to come back not going to come back for a long time. You probably want a grassland to do the last book, or like a book at least 6 months out, so like they can take advantage of all of the things that they're learning. You probably want 2 tundras once every 6 months, who are going to be able to take advantage of all of the evergreen tropes and like really smash your shared world up into the like, and maybe be #1 on Amazon or something. Then you probably want an aquatic who's going to be excited to like do the commercial and do the radio pitch and do all the other stuff that's going to help drive people from other formats to your work. And then, like I said, you're probably going to want you're probably going to want as many forests as you can find to activate their community, become beta readers, and like spread stuff out. And then you're going to want a grassland to run it all, like, and keep track of all of the thing and reference. So just by knowing not even what your ecosystem is, but what all of the other people's ecosystems are, you can like start planning things like anthologies or shared worlds or a company that you're starting, or you can build out a team, a sales and marketing team. For instance, your social media team should be all deserts. Your research or thought leadership teams should be all grasslands. Your launch team should be all tundras. Your business development team should be aquatics, and your community team should be a forest. And all of that stuff, if you can start connecting them together. I've talked to huge companies that don't do this, that their eyes are like go wide when we talk about this with them. But it's like, yes, your ecosystem is important, your evolution is important, but also how you evolve a team of writers or of people for your company is also just like, it's mind-blowing what you could do, I think.
Cool. So we have a Tundra who says their insight was that they need the recovery period. Yes. I think it's for Tundra, I think it's so important to have that. It's like launch. It's like recovery, build, launch, recovery, build, launch, recovery, build, launch, throughout the year. And if you want to do it by month, that gives you a good 4 months that you're launching. Grassland, geek out with the audience. I don't fully understand this one. If someone wants to tip me or I want to offer that opportunity, I just offer.
He's responding to a different thing.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Grassland, content marketing. Not sure what else. Yeah, that's good. Grassland with a long running series, but not really a subject matter expert. So again, you don't have to be a subject matter expert to be a Grassland. Like a lot of people think it's like a nonfiction thing. The long running series, like your series can be like the thing. It's just if you find yourself not having enough, not being like a fast writer on that, then that's when you might want to turn to subject matter expertise. But really, like a great example for us, and somebody who has confirmed that they're a Grassland, is our friend Mal Cooper. She wrote like 100 books in her one world. It's like a sci-fi world. And I was talking to her one day and she's like, I probably like to finish the story the way I want to, I would probably have to write 100 more books. And like when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that is so many. But she's serious, like, you know, so it's like that can also be a Grassland where a lot of times a Grassland tries to figure out how to write fast because they know that like their story is not small. And so that could definitely be a path to success as well, without having to be an expert, subject matter expert, or like blog or whatever. On the nonfiction side, probably you're blogging. Okay, so learned a lot by the types that I'm not. Weeding the grasslands, yes. you definitely have to weed your grasslands. And I would also say like pull the things like you pull up that weed, but you're also going to like replant it on the tree, even though that doesn't make sense as a metaphor from a plant perspective. But you're really like, it's not, you don't necessarily have to weed your grasslands. You can also weave your grasslands, like just whatever you're doing, like bring it in, like try to bring it into your main thing that's working right now. Okay, so we also have
really like a columnist for like a newspaper does this really well. Like they're all yes. A columnist. If you want to see this done really well, like the columnist always generally has one thing that they're talking about, but they weave every story of the day. They find any story, it doesn't matter. They're all weaving it back to like what they want to talk about.
Yeah, I think a Grassland more than anything is really good at like returning the conversation to the topic. I just got a flash of this person at a conference where like they sat down and they just couldn't stop talking about this one thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, maybe they're a Grassland, probably. But yeah, like I think like what Grasslands do is they're really like always working at the edge of their topic. and like trying to make it all kind of like fit together, and like following their own interest in many ways, and people are connecting with them over the interest and over the I always say topic, but it could be niche. Like again, like Elena Johnson's like a great example. She wrote like we both think she's a grassland. I haven't. We'll talk to her next week at NINC about it, but you know, she's written like 100 cowboy romances, like Christian cowboy romances, and just like doubled down on it. And whenever there's new trends in contemporary romance, she's like, I just put those tropes in there. Like if it's a popular trope, I just put it in like the next Liz Isaacson book. And like she explains this in like, and she wrote 4 books about her own process. She explains it in in those books. Okay. So what else? Wishing well is slowly killing me as a grassland. Yeah. I kind of like that analogy. What do you think, Russell?
Hang on.
Wishing well versus pennies in the bank. Pennies in the wishing well versus pennies in the bank. Because I feel like that describes the grassland and the problems that the grassland has. Is like they're just putting out content and hoping it goes somewhere.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. If you are a true, because there are other things if you're not a true grassland that like you're just talking about a topic that's not like ever going to hit. But if you are a grassland and talking about a topic and you've been pulling stuff back, like yes, almost all grasslands want to be on every platform and like need to be on every platform, and they have nowhere to bring those people back to. And so they end up losing thousands upon thousands of potential subscribers and potential fans because they leave it on whatever the platform is, which is also the reason they almost all have to be wide, because they need to be able, people need to be able to find their work wherever and whenever they get to it. It was a big problem for Monica and I. When she finally explained this to me, I was like, oh, I totally understand a grassland, because like you can't have a live launch because you're losing money when someone reads something and goes somewhere and they can't join it at that moment. So like the like evergreen model is really, really, really important for a grassland, and definitely having like one course or one coaching thing and just literally finding everywhere that can cover it and lead people back to, even if it's one at a time, is going to be important.
Yeah. I think this was a Tundra that they've learned how to do email marketing and are getting good at it. They need to improve launches next. I agree with that. Team dynamics. Okay. Let's see. I think we might be at the end of that. Oh, one of the grasslands says, I could write 200 books in my world too. I'm always trying to write faster. Yep. And Mal, she had co-writers, so that helped her get to 100 very quickly.
Yeah. So if you are that kind of person, you can like definitely look into a shared world of just, and also it's helpful if you're like, I want to build this up to 100 books. You can be like, I need to co-write with these different ecosystems of people too.
Yeah, like a desert would be good. Okay, let's see. Tundra says, nobody wants my process. It's very true. Okay. Yeah, that's the main ones. I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of the ones, or like what we covered is really who was here.
Yeah. Well, yes, I'm not surprised. These were the breakdown. These are the breakdown of people.
These are the three.
There's so few aquatics and so few deserts in our audience. So few aquatics overall and so few deserts. I would say to the person that said nobody wants my process, I released a book that was just my process stuff earlier this year called This Is Not a Book. And it raised like $5,000. And I don't know, I'm like very blessed to have fans who just want to hear about my process and thoughts of this stuff. But I don't know if that's true. What I do think is true as a true Tundra is you want to be like, I'm going to make a book of my whole world. You probably can't rationalize currently how to do the grassland way of just doing that every day for like 5 years. And you just I want the money now. So like you can do that and put the process together in a launch. And then kind of what I do is I take a lot of those concepts that are in all of my books and I just reuse them as parts of my like Substack as well. So I don't think it's necessarily no one wants your process. I think it's just very hard for a Tundra to understand how a grassland thinks. Like when you talk about launches, they're literally, if a forest and a desert are the opposite, a tundra and a grassland are probably the opposite, because one is at home in an evergreen model and one is at home in a live launch model. And it's very hard to understand how the other one exists, but you probably need both at some point.
Yeah. Somebody said Forrest says, can Forrest really co-write effectively? I have seen Forrest, like, it just kind of bombs when they co-write sometimes, unless they're both Forrests. But I feel like, I don't know, I've definitely seen it kind of not work, because the Forrest, like, especially if it's like one Forrest has the audience, the other one is the writer, which was a common kind of thing in this industry for a while, is like, you have a big enough name, get a co-writer who's kind of like a no-name, and they do most of the writing, you just kind of edit it, and then you put it out to your audience. I saw that do very, very poorly for those Forests, and the reason why is they just, like, their audience wanted them and could immediately tell, like, this is not you, and like their audience was just like, did not want it, like, did not care. It wasn't because it wasn't their name that was the value, it was them. So yeah, it really depends. I think when two Forests get together, I've seen that work pretty well, where they kind of create, like, they bring enough of, they both bring enough of themselves that they're able to kind of keep it in line with their two audiences, and then it kind of grows, and hopefully those audiences are somewhat of crossover too. So
yeah, I think that for a Forest, it's probably a, you write a draft, I write a draft. Like, it's not with other ecosystems, right, a lot of it's like you finish it all the way to the end. Whereas my friends who are like, because sometimes, I mean, you know, with companies, you often co-write like a thing together, and the way that it worked is like, you go through and do your own audience thing, and then I'm going to go through, like, we'll agree on the main B points. You also, with any Forest, have to be willing to understand, you have to know that their outline and their final product are not going to have any resemblance to each other, like zero. It's like almost not even worth doing. Another thing that might work is, I've seen people do, like, for a romance, like, you write one point of view, they write the next point of view, and like they go back and forth in that way. And I think that could possibly work.
I think that works. I've seen that work well, but for two Forests, they both are able to kind of bring their audience. But yeah, it's
definitely hard. It's definitely Forrest as a content, as like a person who is hired to do another book. An editor just has to be like, okay, like, I'm going to just trust the thing. My friend Marv says that all the time, but he's like, he created the Teen Titans, and he's like, I write a book. Like, I send him an outline, and then I send him a book, and they're not anything like each other, but like, it works on the market. And I'm like, yeah, because like, you're Marv Wolfman, like, everyone wants to read your book, like, of course. It's that question from so which ecosystem is the worst at outlines? I mean, easily it's the Forest.
It's probably the Forest.
I wouldn't even, like, I talk to Forest, they can't even beat sheet. Like, at least I can beat sheet and kind of hit some things. They're just like so naturalistic when they write that it's like, they don't, if they get constrained in any way, it's like, it might hamper what the genius is.
Yeah, we would like to extend the ecosystems to the writing side, because I think it's going to really tie in still with sales and marketing, because creating a product is part of marketing, right? Like, it's kind of the initial part of marketing. So we do think we'll eventually tie it into that, but we haven't, I mean, aside from what we're saying right now, we haven't really done much aside from, like, you know, the right to market versus, you know, this or that. But I do think it breaks nicely into that.
Yeah, I also think that, like, Becca does so much work in her, like, scenic, the way that she does, like, the so if you're like looking at Becca's she does plane, I think she does like rocket, plane, scenic route, highway, scenic route, and like hiking. And like, if you look at that as like how you write, and then like the Trailblazer, it kind of like, this can help we're really focused on doing the sales and marketing part of it, because we think that's the part that like really no one has a good handle on. And one person says they're 100% plotter forest, and that story ends up matching the outline absolutely. And like, you are a very, 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 very disciplined forest, and I applaud you for that.
I see a lot of disciplined forest, but yeah, that's interesting. Cool. Okay, so I think we've kind of exhausted. I mean, we're 30 minutes over.
Yeah. If you want to see how this dovetails with Becca, go back and if you're like, join the author ecosystem at authorecosystem.com/live, and then go back into the monthly calls and listen to, literally, Becca was here 2 months ago talking about this exact topic.
Yep. All right, so go to authorecosystem.com/live so that you can join our mini course that's coming up, and we can talk much more about all of this. Bye, everyone. Thank you.